Good evening. I'm Mamta Bharadwaj, and I head employer branding at the Nudge Institute. Welcome to another edition of Jigyaasa. While you stay on hold for a couple more moments, we're waiting for people to join us, so just stay with us. All right, so welcome to another edition of Jigyasa, a platform for you to hear from social sector professionals about their experiences solving some of the hardest problems from within the social sector. Jigyasa is a conversation that will help you unpack the work and life of a social sector professional and, in the process, give you necessary tools to access the sector as a part of your own journey. This edition of Jigyasa with the ecosystem, we are joined by Ruchi from Lighthouse Communities and Santosh from Mantra4Change, along with Shrey, who works with the social entrepreneurship team at the Nudge Institute. Ruchi is co-founder at Lighthouse Communities, an organization on a mission to build empowered communities through life skills, employment, and entrepreneurship opportunities. Santosh is co-founder of Mantra4Change, an organization that works towards transforming public schools in India. Before I invite our speakers to share their thoughts and insights, a little bit about the topic at hand. How can strategic partnerships and collaborations unlock the potential of the social sector in India? The need for diverse voices and perspectives to address social challenges is steeply increasing, and so is the awareness around it. This has led to pronounced focus on collective or collaborative action in the social sector. Today, when we say collaborative action, we acknowledge how it involves a range of players from central and state governments, local authorities, CSR, action institutes, and communities on ground. With long-term sustainable objectives in mind and a focus on empowering communities, collaboration opens up the opportunity to dive deep into systemic issues. In this edition of Jigyasa, we will explore the roles and job opportunities that open up as a result of sector-wide as well as cross-sectoral collaboration in the social sector. So let's begin with inviting our speakers to introduce themselves and speak a little to how they found themselves drawn to the social impact space. Ruchi, if we may begin with you.
Mamta, can I request that Santosh go first because there's some sound that's coming from outside. It should finish in another 2 minutes.
Sure. No problem. Santosh, we are handing the baton to you then.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mamta, and thanks, Ruchi, for putting me on spot. Um, I'm Santosh Moore, one of the co-founders at Mantra4Change. I'm an engineer by degree, worked with Infosys Technologies long ago, and started my social sector career with Teach for India. I joined as the founding cohort of Teach for India in 2009 and was very privileged to work with Ruchi. Ruchi was part of the management team at Teach for India during that time. So it has been a wonderful experience so far. After Teach for India, I worked with Janagraha, which is into public policy and participation and people's participation in democracy. Post which Khushbu and I co-founded Mantra4Change with an idea of driving change at scale in education space. And it has been immense learning with respect to what we have been trying to do. We started with an idea of school as a unit of change, and then we moved to district as a unit of change, and state as a unit of change. And today we are in the middle of creating a education movement towards systemic reforms in education itself, with 100 partner organization plus women self-help group and youth-led organization. The idea is that across the country, more and more organizations, more and more people should find way to come together towards reforming education system of the country. So that's where we are as in terms of organization, in terms of individual, and our larger aspiration is by 2030, a million public school in India should be transformed.
Great. Thank you, Santosh. Ruchi, if we may move on to you now.
Hi, thanks so much. It's lovely to be here. I want to say that this topic is one that is close to my heart. I mean, not just about collaboration, but also having this session for people to understand what it is to join the development sector and how one can go about it. Because, like how Santosh introduced himself, to tell a bit about my journey. I'm an MBA 1995. I worked in the corporate sector for 10 years. And then I moved to the development sector with CRY, Child Rights and Youth in 2005. And after that, I was with Teach for India. I joined them in 2010. Then I started heading corporate social responsibility at Zensa Technologies. And in 2015, Ganesh Natarajan and myself, we started this organization. It used to be called Pune City Connect, now Lighthouse Communities. We work in the area of skilling and livelihoods, helping young people get jobs. So I want to talk about how I found myself in the development space. Number one, to say that it's not very easy to understand how to where to start in this space, because unlike other sectors, it's actually, strangely enough, not so visibly structured. So, for example, if one wants to join IT sector or the banking sector, you're clear what are the verticals, horizontals, what are the job roles, but it is not actually so visible in the case of the social sector. And usually one gets into this space because of conversations, with somebody, and then you realize, oh, there is this, I've always wanted to do something, and then, by happenstance, one enters into this space. So I want to acknowledge, Nudge, Mamta, and team, and the Nudge organization for actually doing this and holding these conversations, because this is what helped me get into the space. The second thing is about understanding that what do I want to do in the space. That also is extremely difficult, because you can be like, you want to be in health or education or livelihoods, you want to be in a foundation or a non-profit or do CSR. There are like so many different it's a whole grid. And again, the only way to actually figure it out is to start somewhere, do some research, hold conversations, and then, by dint of your work experience, one understands what one wants to do. And the third thing is really that what in this in the development sector will be my space of full potential, because finally we are all here for helping others and ourselves, be the best version of ourselves, or achieve full potential, or on that journey. And this is the part that's the most difficult, and it takes time. I think having mentors along the way, and just trying various things. It took me around 10 years. So it was 2015 before I understood that what I am particularly passionate about and committed to, helping young people have dignity, agency, and reach full potential, and doing this at scale. But that's quite a journey, so one really has to just stay with it. So those are my two bits about joining the sector. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Ruchi. I think just having these conversations, like you pointed out, are so pivotal in us making these decisions, because it gives you the sort of vocabulary to even have these conversations in a more professional setup. So thank you for that, Ruchi. And I'd like to invite Shrey now to talk a little bit about his journey into the nudge.
Yeah. I wish I'd met Ruchi a long time ago. I started off straight off the bat in the impact sector. Was very inspired by Professor Yunus's work in microfinance. This was 2009-10. But yeah, there was not a lot of conversation, at least very structured way out there in the ecosystem. Found my way sort of through the sector. Very early on, was very interested in social entrepreneurship. So did sort of different roles, but basically multiple versions of being in the ecosystem of social entrepreneurship, helping or trying to help models scale, mostly in livelihoods. Spent sort of 10, 12 years doing that, and last 3 years, some very, very interesting roles at the Nudge. Right now, work with the social enterprise team, where we amongst other things, we run an incubator accelerator for not-for-profits. But we're also looking at models in the for-profit space that can scale for livelihoods. So
yeah. Thanks, Shrey. So before we move on to the next question, I'd just like to call out to the audience that please share your comments and questions with us in the comment section, and we'll try and address them towards the end of the session, and we'll get our speakers to respond to them. We'll wait for your comments and questions there. And moving on, I think given the distinct yet somewhat similar space that all of you come from, My question to begin with is, how do each of you view collaboration individually and from within the space that you're in, the thematic space that you're in? And how do you consciously work towards collaborative objectives or outcomes? Santosh, if I could bring you in here first.
Thank you so much. And in fact, something that we keep debating. I always say in my team as well. Is there any other way um, where we are talking about, if we have to really talk about change at scale, if we really have to talk about sustaining change at scale, I really don't know if there is any other way. And when I say collaboration, I also want to distinguish between uh, a collection and a collective. And this is something that we we should be again conscious about, whether when we are talking about these organizations coming together and doing something which is not connected versus creating a collective which is connected by a common cause and common purpose. And I feel if more and more organizations are able to come together towards a common cause and common purpose, then eventually we would be able to drive each of, like, a collective towards a mission, a collective towards a purpose. Government as a part of this collective is one very important factor which we generally, I would say, which we tend to forget. We try to see government as a customer versus government as a part of the collective itself. That's where I think a lot of things start breaking, because when you go to the government, you go with a product versus you don't go with a co-creation approach. You don't approach the government saying that let's get together on the same table and start doing some co-creation for the larger good. I think government as a co-creation partner, government as part of the collective towards that common purpose, which is co-created, is again one very, very important trait of how we can consciously drive this collective action. So if I may have to just summarize in terms of the principle, I would just say, a we need to we need to put our effort towards ensuring that there is a common purpose, co-created purpose. Second is spending time on co-creation with the government, with the partner organization, and not just looking at a vendor and a product approach. These are, I would say, two to three pointers that we have learned as part of the collective action in our work so far.
Thank you, Santosh. That was really interesting to call it out how it's different with different scenarios. Ruchi, if I may bring you in for the same question and for you to let us share with us about your context of what is collaboration like with different stakeholders and who are the different stakeholders that might present themselves in a social sector sort of scenario.
Yeah, so I'm an absolute firm believer in collective action, and I completely agree with you, Santosh, in about the co-creation and the government, and I would also like to talk to that more from the Lighthouse communities perspective. But collective action and collaboration, they're slightly different. Right now, I just use both as one term. It's literally in the DNA of how LCF was formed, and particularly in the livelihood sector, collaboration is critical because the problem that has to be solved is too large in scale and it's too complex, in nature, to really be able to make any significant dent by one entity. So I'll talk a bit about how this is approached. The first is related to the government. The bedrock really is that of a public-private partnership. And just like Santosh mentioned, way back in 2015, the very idea of the lighthouse. So the lighthouses are these physical spaces. These are the centers where young people from low-income communities, they come, they go through a series of interventions, and then they get employed or they become an entrepreneur. So the very concept of the lighthouse and what would happen there, this was co-created with the then Municipal Commissioner of Pune, on Mr. Kunal Kumar. And literally, it's not like we went there with an idea, but we co-created this. And because of that, there is always a sense throughout that the government co-owns this. The government also has the sense, and so does Lighthouse Community. And the nature of the PPP is also quite unique because the space, the capital expenditure for the lighthouse centers. So that is something that is provided by usually by the respective municipal corporation. So the physical space, setting it up with furniture, equipping it with IT equipment, and also renovation of the space to make it an aspiration smart looking structure. All of this is undertaken by the government. So they spend, it would be a spend of 50 lakhs to 70 lakhs per lighthouse. So it is quite incredible. And, the philanthropic partners, donor partners, they help with the donations that would help with the OPEX. So it's, a public-private partnership joined at the hip in the business model itself. And then the second aspect of collective action is working with the overall skilling ecosystem. So because the belief is in full potential, like I mentioned, in my introduction as well. So the whole idea is that every young person should be able to find their own path to self-actualization. And so if it's only us offering courses, we may be able to offer 4, 5, or max 6. So we partner with the skilling ecosystem so that everyone has freedom of choice. Someone wants to be a gym instructor, graphic designer, digital marketing person, whatever they want to be. We partner with other skilling organizations who are offering the best courses and that paid for. So in that sense, today we work with more than 100 such skilling organizations across the country, and young people are able to have freedom of choice. So that's really how and then there's the employer ecosystem. So there are more than around 7,000 employer partners that we've worked with. So the bottom line about collaboration, as far as Lighthouse Communities is concerned, is that it has to be a win-win. Just like business collaborates, for either strategic reasons or the partnership is important for economic reasons. The same way, there has to be a business case for collaboration. And everyone talks about, oh, collaboration is so important to change the world and all of that, but there used to be very, very few examples of this. And I think it was partly also because this thing hadn't gotten cracked. Now there are many more examples that it has to actually make sense to each partner. Second thing is that each one comes in with their own strength. So government comes in with the tendering and capex process. Skilling organizations will come in with their donor partners. The second part of the PPP come in with what they are good at as volunteering, etc. So that makes it easy to collaborate. And the third thing is one has to take away the pain of collaborating from all the collaborators. So if there is like being like a bank organization that does all the coordination, so that everyone can just come in with what they are good at and at the same time see the big picture. To my mind, is the formula for a collaborative.
Great. Thank you so much, Ruchi. I think taking away that pain of having to collaborate and having to, weight lift that initial process itself is, I think, where the limitations are usually seen. So it's very interesting that you pointed that out. And at this point, I'd like to bring in Shrey, who has sort of always straddled that path. In our conversations previously, we've discussed this, that he's always been at this center of private and social sector collaboration. Shrey, if you could speak a little more to it from your experience.
Yeah, I think plus one to what both Santosh and Ruchi have said. In social enterprise, I mean, when we're talking about enterprise, we're talking about being able to sort of amplify an individual sort of a founder's vision, right? Their efforts to be able to create this change. There's sort of two ways I look at it. One is as someone like the Nudge or as anyone else who's supporting entrepreneurs, there's a lot of clarity you need to be able to understand what are you good at, and what can you leverage from the ecosystem. You'll see that happen quite efficiently in for-profits, because I think there's a tendency to always look at numbers. So you'll constantly think about how do I optimize costs, etc., etc. And that's sort of the approach we sort of have at the Nudge as well, where we're very clear about, okay, what can others do better? What strengths can I leverage in other organizations? Secondly, we talk to entrepreneurs about, because these are, of course, they could be not-for-profits, they could be for-profits, but you're talking to them about, okay, do you have clarity about your business model? Where can you collaborate? Do you need to solve this? Can you just piggyback on someone else's tech? Can you use someone else's sort of ecosystem that they've already done? So this is, I think, coming from Ruchi's point about, are you clear about where can you collaborate? And between for-profit and sort of the impact space, I think it becomes extremely crucial for enterprises that work in this sort of the coming together of both sectors, because uh, for-profit social enterprises have to be very careful about their money, their funding. Of course, not-for-profits have to be, but I think uh, for-profits see death a lot sooner because of sort of that inefficiency in not understanding what they need to solve and where they need to collaborate. So I feel like that's collaboration sort of a big word. If you don't understand it very clearly, you could very well have very good intentions, but you could be doing sort of entirely wrong things. You need to sort of clarity is power. You need to be very clear about where you're going to collaborate.
Yeah, that point actually is a nice segue into the topic that I wanted to get into now, Shrey. So thank you for that. What I want to bring to the table is, from your perspectives, what are the critical areas that have witnessed or even now present a great scope for collaborative action in India? There are certain spaces that are ripe for collaboration, and they could benefit substantially from collaborative action across sectors. So, which do you think are those spaces that are ripe both from an employment perspective, collaboration perspective, or just even entrepreneurial perspective? So, yeah, I'd like to open it out again to Santosh, if you could share your thoughts.
So I think, see, I really feel that in India, because the expanse of work is so much, it's like if you see any sector, and I'm no expert on to comment on health, livelihood, and other sectors. But if you see education, for example, we are talking about 28 states and then several union territories. We are talking about 1 million public school, 250 million school going children. Now, just imagine the extent of work that needs to go. Now, the playing field is so huge that without collaboration, without government is the biggest, I would say, delivery provider or biggest provider of public services in India. You can't match government. Now, if you are looking at that kind of number, collaboration is the way to go. That's where I feel that whether it's education, and I'm sure that Ruchi would be taking examples about livelihood and her experiences over there. But let's take example of some of the work that has happened in the past. And again, I'll take example of work where mantra is involved, where mantra is not involved, because that will give a better perspective. So in when we started working in the state of Bihar, one of the things that we proposed to the government was we'll work from grade 6 to grade 8 on, and that was the area we chose, and we always call ourselves a highway building company, education highway. We say that we are a education highway building company. We'll make sure that we get the individuals, stakeholders in the government department aligned to a mission. We co-create. We'll do all those work which is required to run a great car. Now, the great car in our case became the project-based learning. So, project-based learning, we spoke to a partner organization, wonderful curriculum they had on project-based learning. It's a Qatar-based organization. They joined hand with us, and then we started working with them very closely on project-based learning with SCRT, Government of Bihar, and Mantra4Change. Eventually, over a period of time, what we kept doing was to strengthen the institution along with government, like Diet as an institution got strengthened at the district level, SCRT as an institution got strengthened at the state level. Now we say that in the state of Bihar, there is this great highway on which multiple programs can run, multiple cars can run. So somebody can come and somebody can run a STEM program. Somebody can come and they can get along with the government and start running a SEL program. And in fact, we are already talking to partners now. We are already talking to partners saying that grade 6 to grade 8, there is this excellent thing which has already been done. Now, can you come to the state of Bihar? Everything taken care of. You come and start working on the aspects where you are strong at. Similarly, in the state of Uttar Pradesh, for example, Nipun Uttar Pradesh was created. Director General School Education Vijay Kiran Anand was there, and he himself became that. I would say the orchestrator of this collaborative or the collection or the collective. So he got different organizations with different skill sets to come together and start delivering Mission Prerna. Now it's called Nipun Uttar Pradesh. Central Square Foundation came, Mantra4Change came, Vikram Shila came, LLF came. So all these organizations came together to deliver just one mission at the state level, which was Nipun Uttar Pradesh. So there are opportunities that are created for collaboration. Somebody will have to play that role of an orchestrator. Somebody will have to play the role of like what I was saying, who is building that highway, right? And then at the end of this, I also feel that if you are working with government as a co-creation partner, you should also be willing to have invisibility as your value. More invisible you are, more impactful you are with the government. This is what we have realized. It's not about attribution, it's about contribution. How you are contributing towards the larger mission, and with government being the front facing partner over there, because that builds ownership, that ensures that nobody is worried about and nobody is terrified about who is who is working, who is not working, but people are all contributing towards a common mission. I think these are the core principles and the values which have really helped us to take the approach of collective action across multiple states. So invisibility as a core value, plus creating the highway on which multiple cars can run. And the third one is, again, I can't reiterate enough, but it's about co-creation with the government and partners.
Thank you so much, Santosh. I think that line will stay with me. It's not about attribution, but about contribution. I think that's so important, especially even as individuals in the social sector. And sometimes we work very close to impact in communities. Sometimes we work at a far distance in different teams and functions. But I think that is something that resonates with all of us. So I'd like to bring this question to Ruchi as well, and also add a layer of what do you think are the missing links currently? We did speak about creating that highway and being that initiator for collaboration. But if we could speak about any specific areas of skills or any specific areas of business importance that we really need innovation in, that could help collaboration in terms of delivering.
Thanks, Mamta. So the criticality, I mean, I already spoke about the criticality of, collaboration in the livelihood sector. The two things that I see collaboration enabling, one is scale. So because of the partnership with the government and, the public-private partnership model today, there are 48 lighthouse centers across 15 cities. There are close to 40,000 young people who've gotten jobs or are self-employed, and the annual run rate is 15,000. This scale was only possible because of the PPP, and all of the government and donor partners that came together. And the second thing is design innovation, because of the skilling ecosystem collaboration, therefore one is able to enable freedom of choice for young people, and that's why they do, they go in for skilling programs and jobs from a sense of conviction, and which is why the 1 year retention rate, say if 100 people join a job today, how many will still be at work 1 year later? It's amongst the highest in the country as far as alumni of the lighthouses are concerned. So I think it's both scale and depth that gets enabled because of collaboration. The missing links, I'll talk about two. One, what Santosh mentioned, the role, what he called the initiator, and someone has to build the highway, orchestrator. The backbone, the concept of the backbone organization, and how that can function, that the technicalities of that. So we were very fortunate to become a partner to the Global Opportunity Youth Network, which actually does a lot of work in the livelihood space and in this format of a place-based approach and an anchor organization. So we learned a lot from that, and actually there is a lot of technical, stuff to learn there. So that's one thing that can happen better. And the second thing is just in the livelihood space. I think one of the missing links is the employer organizations, and here I'm also mentioning because there could well be some employers in the audience, employer organizations. And, because instead of like what Santosh was saying, that instead of even what holds true for the government, that is not just a receiver of something, but also co-creator. Similarly, traditionally employers are seen as they come into play when it's time for a young person to get a job. But actually, for employers to be part of the designing of the program right from the start, and to say that what it is they need, what are the gaps right now, so what can be done such that this hire will actually be a successful hire, meaning that they will be able to get to be retained to thrive in the and have a career in the organization. That is something which we could certainly it would be a breakthrough to do this significantly. We've done it with a few employers. It's been a very good experience, and this needs to happen much more.
Thanks, Ruchi. Thanks for sharing your insights on that. Shri, I'd like to bring you in on the same question, but also add an angle of how that translates into job opportunities in the sector. How collaboration and just expanding the playing field, it means that you can consume a lot more people in terms of professionals and employees contributing to the sector and towards a purpose. So how does that translation work in your perspective?
Yeah, I'll start with the first bit. I thought it would be important to chime in because I'll talk about it from the point of view of an entrepreneur first, and then I'll talk about job opportunities. Uh, there are sort of two I feel uh, I think misapprehensions that entrepreneurs have, and maybe I think I see some comments around certain things as well. There are two aspects I want to address. One is I run a social enterprise, or I'm a founder. If I collaborate, sort of my market goes away, right? And you think you're fighting for the same piece of the market. Um, as true as that may sound, having been a founder who struggled myself with these thoughts, uh, it's actually not not as true as you think it is. The market's pretty big. Usually, if you're trying to solve sort of a very important problem, usually there's a market. It may not be financially sustainable, so you have to think about the model. Um, but usually there's an apprehension around if I share, there'll be a problem. Whereas if you talk to a lot of successful founders, you'll see the more you put yourself out there, the more you thought, okay, something, this is not down my alley. Someone else does it better. Let's look at what value am I contributing. It usually takes a bit more time. It's usually a scarier path, but usually works out well. You'll save yourself a lot of trouble. You'll save yourself a lot of money, a lot of time, not burn as many sort of rupees or dollars. And sort of, I combine the two. It's also the time bit. You're sort of very impatient to build. And that's where, in the dev sector, you talk about patient capital. And the collaboration with funders who are sort of more patient, to understand that you're going to be able to provide value, but it's going to take a while to do. And to have that journey with funders, to have that journey with partners, to not do things where you're not going to provide value, that clarity needs to be maintained. And then you can think about collaborations, and then you will not be scared of collaborating. Just to address that. In terms of opportunities, I think I myself have been sort of benefited from sort of, to have a career in the space, which I don't know, at least in my sort of peer group, was almost unheard of back in 2000, whatever, 2010. But purely because of what different impact investors saw in the space, different sort of large philanthropies saw in the space, different not-for-profits who were daring to dream big, who had some amount of capital, because they did all that groundwork, because they were willing to collaborate with government, because they were willing to collaborate with grassroots organizations. I can name so many organizations, but it'll take all day. Because of the groundwork they did, people like us who wanted to sort of have a career in creating change, and not like wanted to also maybe be able to sustain ourselves from a financial point of view, we are able to work on top of whatever they did. And I feel like we're sort of laying that same foundation. Organizations that work now, that are able to dream big, are able to collaborate across sort of government, public sectors. I think this is where we're creating those spaces. Within the nudge, we have the example of, we work with state governments, central ministries, things that were sort of unheard of maybe a decade ago. We work with the government to not only implement certain programs, but to think through those programs. And what that does is, when we get that buy-in from sort of senior bureaucrats from the government machinery, they've sort of recognized, oh yeah, we'll look at that PMU. Why don't you get us? We'll fund some of that. Maybe get some funding for that. So it creates those opportunities, and it creates sort of even a sort of a it lays the groundwork, the foundation for future things to be done on that. So things we do now multiply and sort of create those opportunities in the future. And I feel like we've not even peeled off the first layer of that. There's a lot of work to be done in PPP, a lot of work to be done in philanthropy and impact. So collaboration, without collaboration, I mean, people like us wouldn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting, Shrey. And that also brings me to what Santosh has said in terms of laying out a highway. And that becomes equally significant in terms of building a talent pipeline, or the kind of people that might, be able to contribute significantly and effectively to work done at scale. So Santosh, if I could bring you in at this point to talk about how this building a highway would translate into bringing more talent into this space, and also the kind of skills and backgrounds that can help this transition be a little more smooth and more effective for impact.
So again, this is a fantastic question about A, what kind of talent, second, what kind of skills. Now again, I'll go back to the same thing about as we are looking at creating this larger space or the larger highway, which is ensuring that the delivery of quality education happens across the public schools in the country. Now you require multiple kinds of talent. Now today, if you ask me, and again we currently work with a lot of designers. We currently work with a lot of software engineers. Now at scale, three things very important. One, co-creating with government, collaborating with multiple civil society organizations, leveraging technology for scale. Now, how are you able to ensure, or how are you ensuring that you are creating the right tech backbone, which is going to support the intervention that you are planning with the government? Today, Diksha as a platform is there. Now, Diksha as a platform has ensured that there is a good content delivery platform for any state which is planning to do teacher training remotely using tech infrastructure. Now, what Diksha also has ability is that you can create your own, I would say, plug and play kind of capability, and take permission from the state government or the central government to create enhancement on top of Diksha. So I'm just trying to bring a point that there are multiple skills which are required to do the work that you are trying to do at scale with government, without government also. Like if you feel that there are like enough scale, 100,000 schools you are reaching without government, that is also fine. Don't take me wrong. I'm just giving a placeholder when I'm talking about collaboration. But marketing as a skill, today there are a lot of marketing professionals who are looking at doing something good for the involving themselves in a meaningful way. There is a lot of opportunity with respect to marketing. There is a lot of opportunity, and again, I can also give you example of government opportunities. For example, we were doing this School of Eminence program with government of Punjab. Now, one is to do the work with government and government doing the work. Second is government communicating the work to the people of the country. Right? That is also very important. Right? How you are ensuring that there is an aspiration for any child, there is an inspiration, there is a value that you are creating, and then the created value is also communicated to the masses. I think that's very important part of what we try to do with the government. So marketing, communication, when you are talking about technology, when you are talking about now AI integration, when you are thinking about an uneducated women in the rural part of say UP or Bihar is who is able to hold Shiksha Samvad, right? Now Shiksha Samvad is a forum where they are collecting, they are working with women they are working with women, men, and panchayat members in their community to ensure that the idea of quality education is reaching them. In fact, there is a question also in that, and maybe we'll take it during the question and answer session. How do you ensure that the demand side is also strengthened while you are supplying what you are supplying today? So I think lot of these things require multiple kinds of talent, and I don't see a difference between now. In fact, more and more as we work in this space, I don't see a difference between how a person who is really dedicated in the civil society organization space will not get those exposure that the person would get in the corporate space, because this space itself provides a lot of opportunities, lot of different creativity, innovation opportunities are there to be able to drive the change. And this is a very dynamic field, because dynamic space, because again, as we also know that the problems of today can't be solved with the solutions of yesterday. So we need to keep innovating on a daily basis. We need to keep innovating कि यार ये नहीं चल रहा है, वो चल रहा है, ये नहीं चल रहा है, वो नहीं चल रहा है. You need to keep your eyes and ears on the ground. And when you are talking about the numbers that we are talking about, 250 million children, and if you just consider their parents and everybody, you are talking about some 500 million population, right? So 500 million population, eyes and ears, if you have to become, then just imagine the kind of muscle you'll have to build with respect to human resources, talent, and the competencies.
Right.
I'll take a pause.
No, thank you, Santosh. I think covering the length and breadth of the kind of diverse opportunities and various stages at which we can, accommodate people, and just the fact that it's a large playing field, and there's different kinds of professionals that can find their space within for impact. I'd like to bring Ruchi in to talk a little bit about what is it that awaits them, because there's one aspect of, yes, there's plenty of opportunity, but there's also people who have certain myths about the social sector, who find the sector a little hard to navigate. It's still not completely known how growth works in this sector, things like that. So in that, I'd like to bring you in and hear your thoughts on how one can navigate that space.
Thanks. This question is an amazing question, because there are so many myths about working in the social sector. Like many people still ask me when I talk to them about, yeah, I'm working in blah, blah, blah. The question is, so it must be, you're all volunteers. So this concept that actually, and this comes all the time. It's not like, a one-off thing. So there is this perception that people have that, because earlier it used to be that way, many, decades back. But yes, this is one myth. Another myth is that of that largely, the people that are recruited and who are working are from the development space, and most of the work that happens is, that is the work. It's like one bucket, without any understanding that there must be that communications function is needed. Just like in any corporate organization, after one reaches a certain scale, like say 100 people or more, and especially depending on the work one is doing, an IT function is needed. Finance. There is so much, Santosh. Anyone in the NGO sector, and yeah, we all know, right, that there's so much to be done by way of financial management. It's more intense than in a corporate job. So that's another myth, that people just don't believe that so much is needed. So some of the roles we have found the hardest to fill actually are, of course, there are development sector roles, but the finance head and IT head, fundraising people, a grant writer, HR head, design. So like curriculum design and content design, communications, as Santosh said, telling the story. Most NGOs are not good at this part, good at work, but not telling the story. These are things, these are talent, these kinds of talents are really needed. We've been able to find some of the, some fantastic people for these roles, not for all of them. But it's extremely tough. So these are the opportunities that await. And I also want to say that, the another myth which is there, and I'll say it with a story. When I joined Zensar Technologies in 2011, on my first day, there was this lady, Parul. She said that, no, sorry, on the third day, she said, you must be feeling anxious now because you're coming from the social sector, because I'd come from child rights and you and then Teach for India. So it will be difficult to cope. Now you're back in the corporate sector. And I just looked at her and I was like, my gosh, like we're from two different worlds, right? Because working in the social sector is far more complex than, a corporate job. Corporate job is a cakewalk, because here it is like, there are ground level factors that one has to work with, political factors. One is working with the government, corporators. There is caste and class. There's so many stakeholders all talking different languages, corporates and volunteers, and all of that while you're on the treadmill that you have to deliver. Because if you don't deliver results, then the donor may pull out. So it's really hard. So the good side of it is it's a wonderful challenge. I think people who like challenges, they thrive. It's a space for self-actualization, because with all of these things and all of this mess, there's no option but to grow and evolve as an individual and as a professional. And I think it gives peace. It feels real. It feels authentic. I mean, everyone knows there's so much of happiness that comes by being relevant, by contributing. So there's a whole lot of all of this which is there, that waits in store.
Thanks, Ruchi. I think I was able to resonate with everything you've said, and for not just speaking for myself, for all of the other people that I've had conversations with, having been in the sector. I think that is what drives us. And even at the Nudge, we talk about being intent first. I'd like to bring Shane before we move into audience questions. We have a few that we'll pick up towards the end of the session. But I'd like to bring Shay in to talk a little bit about what are the wins that one can focus on when you come into the sector, and what are the opportunities that really await you in terms of learning and building yourself as a professional, and building a career trajectory for yourself, beyond the objectives and mission of the organization itself. At an individual level, someone who transitions into the social sector, what can they really expect?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with, I mean, the first real important thing, especially for maybe a younger sort of audience, is firstly understand your own sort of situation financially, as a person, family. Just understand that. It's nothing, I mean, it's not a pro or a con. You have to be able to be very clear about uh, what you want from life in general. And that's where I think Ruchi's point towards self-actualization comes in. Uh, it's important to sort of look before you leap, with, I think, anything in life, but especially with this. Um, Having said that, if that sounds too pessimistic, I'll say this is the place for, as Ruchi said, people who are really looking to solve things. In an ideal world, you get compensated the most to be able to do these jobs. Okay, there's no doubt about it. You have to be both left brain, right brain. You have to have IQ, EQ. You have to be able to abstract and specific. You're sort of you're being put through the school of life to be able, if you want to become successful in the sector, not just from a point of view of designation, but to actually create impact, you have to be able to do all of these things. There's sort of no sort of real easy way out of this. So big win for me is number one. If you're the sort of person who wants to be the best version of themselves, great, you found the right way. At least, I mean, I'm generalizing. You could, of course, land into trouble just like in the for-profit or corporate world. You could land into trouble in this world as well, working with organizations that may not, be the most sort of well-intentioned. Number two, I think immense work satisfaction if you are able to design and co-create your sort of own role. This is also, I'd like to say this to anyone who's entering sort of in the first 2 to 5 years of this career into the sector. You have to be able to talk to your manager. You have to be able to talk to your organization and say, look, this is why I've come into the sector. I want to be able to also have a say in how I'd like to grow. And while that's, I think, in progressive sort of corporates, you see that happening, that has to become more of a practice. And at least in my experience, I'm happy to say that at the Nudge have had that experience. So big win there. Number three, I think, I don't, again, generalizing, but I usually find the most interesting people in the sector. Like, you can have a conversation without getting bored. Sometimes with other sort of folks, you're like, "Arey, kya baat kar rahe hai?" What are we even talking about? But here, conversations are, um, uh, you have people who want to achieve goals, but they also understand it's really complex. So you're sort of all sort of really trying to put your heads together and saying that, okay, karna kya hai? Like, are we being too ambitious or are we being too pessimistic? So you have the whole sort of drama of life sort of happening on a day-to-day basis. I don't think you'll find a lot of people who go back home bored in the sector. So I think a lot of big wins, but I think again clarity is extremely important. So for an individual, I think in general you need to be very clear, but especially in the sector, you need to be able to talk to different people before you enter certain organizations, because each organization is very unique. You need to be able to be clear about what you want. But big wins, and as I said, I mean, we're pretty. I mean, people in the sector are doing decently well, even in terms of sort of finances and being able to have work-life balance. So there's a lot of, and that's not. I can't say that was true 20 years ago when Ruchi and Santosh probably started. But right now, it's a lot sort of more balanced. Of course, you still there'll be a lot of comparisons being made with the for-profit sector, but it's pretty good, and you have all these big wins. So more and more, I think people who like these challenges will find this sector very appropriate.
Yeah, thank you, Shrey. I think what I take from your insights is that you should be clear enough to want to dive into complexity and to be able to tread that path of navigating, wicked problems and really unexpected problems on a daily basis, which in itself is rewarding enough on a daily basis for someone who's in the social sector. So thanks for that. We'll quickly move into a few audience questions. Santosh, I'd like to bring this to you. As you mentioned, one of the questions we have from our audience member, Vinod Menon, is most organizations are approaching with a supply-driven mindset without truly understanding the demand side and the expectations from the government, and the expectations from the government or from the donors.
Expectation from the government or from the donor?
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting. So one, I feel whenever we are talking about social sector ecosystem, we have to think from three lenses. One is the context independent lens, second is the context aware lens, third is the context intensive lens. Now the context intensive lens is very important lens. Now that is where the rubber hits the road. That's where the point. That's it. That is where the basically you are working with your stakeholder. You are working with that hat or with that lens in your mind that the child in the classroom is able to gain through your intervention. But we also need organizations which are context aware and context independent. And again, many a times we say that we don't like, because people always say that, are you seeing what is a stakeholder is talking about, what is the stakeholder is doing on the ground, and what is happening to that child in the classroom. But just imagine if a tech infrastructure like Diksha isn't there, right? Would we be able to? Diksha is just a placeholder, an example. There could be other tech infrastructure also. There are multiple states who have created their own tech infrastructures. But if the tech infrastructure is not there, would you be able to reach a teacher, all the say 1,000?
Oops, I think we lost Santosh.
Now, am I audible?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, perfect. So I was just telling that would we be able to ensure that we are able to reach to all those people who are working inside the classroom. So that's very important to understand who is the customer at each layer. So when we are talking about a context intensive layer, the child in the classroom or the teacher in the classroom is the end customer. While when we are talking about a context independent layer, there a civil society organization or a government which is working to ensure that a program diversifies into all different geographies is the customer. So I feel many a times we need to understand it really well for whom we are designing, and the importance of each and every layer when we are designing a solution, whether it's a context independent, whether it's a context aware, or whether it's a context like for one very good example is Wallace Foundation in the US designing school leadership development programs. Now, when they design a school leadership development program, that could be taken by an organization in India, made context intensive, and deployed inside the schools, inside the classroom. Now that's where the importance of a context intensive, context aware, and context independent layer comes into play when we are talking about a demand led intervention. So at multiple layers, who is demanding is changing, and hence the demand, uh, hence the kind of solution is also changing.
Great. Thanks, Santosh. I think you broke it out very elegantly for us. Taking the next question, I'd like to I'd like Shay to come in for this. It says, how does a growing or a new enterprise move towards collaborative action? Because as a new initiative, people do not or may not want to collaborate with a new enterprise or a new idea.
Yeah, I think I partly referred to it in a previous answer, but
Right.
this there is this apprehension that you have that if you collaborate, there might be sort of issues with uh, market share, etc., and also with partners who may think you're not ready. Now, sometimes they're actually right. You may not be ready. So having very objective conversations, both within the team and with outsiders, especially if you have an advisory board, if you have funders, to really understand, okay, am I ready for this partnership? That's extremely important. If you feel you are ready and there are partners there, um, I think these are well proven sort of ways of doing this. Is that you do POCs, you do proof of concepts, you lay out more than you want to take from that partnership, just so that you have to be able to showcase your credibility. People are going to be hesitant. It's natural. If you were in that position, you may have been hesitant to partner with someone new. When you buy a new AC, if you buy a new brand, you're hesitant about what it's going to be. So these are real problems. But to have, I think, clarity has sort of solves that 90%, and then the rest is about, okay, how can I get the most sort of bang out of my buck for this pilot, to be able to again maybe plan out those pilots slightly better than just jumping in. Oh, this is a great opportunity, let's do it. But to have that patience, to have the clarity, and then step forward while maintaining agility, while maintaining that sort of founder mindset where you want to take opportunities. It's not a formula. You'll have to, I think, listen to sort of founders who have done it before. You have to talk to your advisors, but you have to be able to take those calls. What can I really contribute here is a very good question to have every time you have a new sort of partnership or collaboration.
Great. Thanks. I think we have 2 minutes before we can wind up the session, and I'd like to, bring in one last question and bring Ruchi in for closing comments and to respond to the question around how one can maintain scale and quality in the context of collaborations.
I think I've referred to both of these when I was speaking. Scale, I think, is self-evident, and but yes, the second part is an important question and very valid, because it is true that as one scales, then there is a concern that is quality going to drop, and secondly, if there are multiple players involved, then also there is a concern that will quality drop. So both of these, so therefore the concern around quality, it does hold. And I think the ways that we have dealt with it are, one is by putting up very clear monitoring systems. So we actually set up a vertical, it's called the mission cell, and basically the mission cell works on how do we track and review that whether quality is being maintained at a certain benchmark in every single center and all the programs that we do. The other is, of course, the use of technology, because that definitely helps to standardize. So for example, just for something as simple as data collection, data management, and data usage and reporting. There is a technology system that ensures that the data collection is accurate, and also one is able to report with accuracy everywhere. Also, the tracking of youth journeys therefore becomes easier. I know that you said there are only 2 minutes left, so I'll stop with these 2 points, and thank the person for caring about depth. Most people care about scale and not so much about depth.
Great. Thank you, Ruchi, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Please tune into our website for opportunities at the Nudge, and we always are hiring, so please check it out. And once again, thank you to our speakers and audience for joining us this evening.
Thank you,
Thanks
everyone.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're off.